David, there's something about esports that has become just gigantic over the last few years, and the Fort Worth ISD is getting part of this. What made Fort Worth decide to enter esports as far as kids being able to compete?
No, certainly. As you mentioned, it has been a growing industry onto itself with over about 250 million viewers that go online to watch some of these competitions. It's become a $1 billion industry. Obviously, whether you have kids or your own, as like I do, it's a high interest for some of our students. So we want to be able to leverage that interest and engagement and make sure that is something that we use for our students to also be engaged in school and also teach them how to use it the correct way, right? Because it's not just about the gaming. There's so many opportunities behind the gaming with all the industries and careers that contribute to designing a video game and how it works. So not only is the opportunity for scholarships there, because now a lot of colleges, about 300 colleges offer scholarships for esports, but also how all the industries and careers that build these games as well.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because I actually just recently went on a tour to with some family friends to UNT, and they had their own little, esports area. David Rankin and I were discussing, some esports programs, UT Dallas and others, and so it's just seems like it's popping up everywhere, as he mentioned. And so, what is the value of having a child's career start in high school? What can they learn when it comes to esports at that level?
True. Well, I mean, if you think about it like any other extracurricular activity, like athletics, we want to make sure students get the skills early. We want to make sure that they know how to take care of themselves in doing this, because it can, just like anything, a little too much of anything could be bad for you. And so early on, we want to train them how to use gaming correctly, how to make it a part of their lives in a productive manner, and get them that appropriate training so they can get these opportunities to pay for college. If this is a path that they take, they may not end up being a professional gamer, much like many athletes don't become professional athletes, but it helps them get to and through college and into a career. And that's really what we're after.
And that's the one thing that's unique about esports is you can be a participant and, as you mentioned, become a professional athlete. But in a lot of other sports, for example, if you don't become a professional athlete at that, you really can't make money. You can make money in other aspects of the competition and still be inside the competition itself.
That's correct. A lot of our students that we've talked to from the 16 teams that we've now formed do speak about either going into computer programming, into graphic design, and even just into just business management in general. And that, of course, are all important fields that we need now. Businesses are becoming more and more attracted to esports and to gamers because they do bring in some of these skills because they naturally gravitate to that technological aspect of the sport.
Okay, so I'm not a gamer. My gaming experience goes to like Super Mario Kart, and then we're done. So for other listeners who I'm sure are like me, I wanted to know what specifically is the training? Because like when I'm thinking sports, I'm thinking there's practice after school. The school particularly sets out fields for us, the balls to use, jerseys to wear. What is the training happening with esports? You're sitting in a computer lab and just playing any game of your fancy, or are there particular types of games? Are you learning the cheat codes? What are you doing?
Well, Kristen, that's a great question, and there is particular games that are popular out there, or that are mostly used for competition. Super Smash Brothers, for example, is one that's a big one. We've provided all of our campuses a Nintendo Switch. That's the only platform you can use to play that particular game. So we've invested in making sure that our students have that platform. In addition, there's games like Overwatch that are also used, and of course, a lot of the sports games are also big within the competitions. There's, Mark Cuban has his own esports team as well, and it focuses on basketball, right? And some of the electronic basketball games. But much like you described, the other, the traditional sports, it's very similar. We do these after school. Students practice on their own time. We use it to make sure that students keep up their grades because you have to pass to play, just like in athletics. And at the same time, just like athletics and fine arts, we want them to take away those skills of leadership, collaboration, skills that will benefit them no matter what career they're in. And so from a logistical standpoint, we were the beneficiaries of a donation by North Tarrant Express about 2 years ago. And we've received a couple of donations from them since, because we were initially focused on starting this 2 years ago. Of course, the pandemic hit, but that allowed us to buy some pretty nice equipment for us to have for competitions, because it requires some pretty good computing power to have, so our students can be competitive. And we've now focused some of the money our taxpayers have graciously approved for us through bonds to be able to buy the equipment necessary to include in every building. And hence, that's why we were able to expand to 16 teams. We want them to have the right equipment, just like you want them to have the right helmets. They need to have the right computers, the right chairs, so they're ergonomically appropriate and they can compete and be competitive at the highest levels.
How cool is it for the kids themselves that they don't have to be the biggest, they don't have to be the tallest, they don't have to be the strongest. They don't even have to be the same gender. You got boys and girls competing on the same team against other boys and girls.
That's correct. That is correct. That's one of the coolest things we've seen. And we saw it in we have other non-traditional, as we call them, events. We have various robotics teams, and our biggest and most successful team is an all-girls robotics team. And so we want to make sure that all students are able to participate in something, whether it's athletics, fine arts. And if this is an avenue where students would have normally not been engaged in school for any other besides having to come to school, which is important, then we want to provide it to them. And we want to make it a productive experience as well, because we do hear about the negative aspects of gaming. You forget it. And so we want to use this opportunity to teach them how to use it productively.
I'm curious about competition. Are you competing, like 5A, 4A, like, is that a thing with esports? Who are you competing with? Is it just within North Texas, or is it out of state?
Well, with esports, that's the beauty of it. You can compete all over the country. Right now, since we're starting, a lot of the competitions are with local school districts, and really the size of the school district hasn't mattered to this point. UIL, the traditional UIL organization, hasn't gone involved with esports just yet. I mentioned robotics earlier. They have gone involved with robotics. There is a UIL. In fact, our teams have made the state competition the last few years when they were holding it in robotics. So, if it grows big enough, they may jump into the arena. We are a part of the high school esports league. And so we compete first locally, but since it's all digital, we can compete with students all over the country and the world.
That's really cool about the esports world, is that there are professional teams that never have to leave their home stadiums, and they can compete against teams from South Korea and China and Japan. And the weird thing is especially, say, the esports stadium in Arlington, for example, right, they'll sell out that place for people to watch others play video games. It's kind of mind-boggling.
Yes, we took our students to a competition hosted by, I think it was Burleson ISD, over at the esports stadium, because they were one of the early adopters in the area, and they're a smaller district, but they are one of the leaders in the field, and we've learned a lot from them, and so we're grateful to them in that school district. Our students were just thrown back at how, for students that have, sometimes have been marginalized because of the students that are, just playing games, or they're in a different group of kids. They just felt at home, and then we were allowed to keep them for the professional competition that happened that night. And it was like going to a regular basketball game, football game. It was packed. There was concessions. It was loud. Everybody cheered on their team. There was entrance music. It was great. And the students really saw themselves in those seats in the future, and hopefully in those careers too.
I love that. Yeah, they definitely got to get a little bit of a sneak peek of, like you said, maybe their future. I'm curious about the faculty. When you guys opened up this curriculum, we know the pandemic has been really difficult for, retaining staff and getting good teachers, qualified teachers. What are the qualifications for this? Do they have to also teach like another class, like history, science, a traditional course on top of this?
Yeah, no, and certainly I want to give credit to some of our early adopters. They were teachers. A lot of the ideas that we're using now came from some of our own teachers. We started looking at it from a district perspective, but some of our early adopters and clubs were just teachers that were interested in gaming and wanted to bring it to students. So we've kept them on board, and we've used some of their know-how and some of the early work they've done, and really just added the logistics to take it district wide. So we couldn't have done this without our teachers. You do have to be a teacher usually on the campus to take this on, and because it is a traditional club, and we're working to also provide stipends for our teachers. But much like anything, our teachers are extremely important, not only for the reading, writing, math, and arithmetic, but all the relationships they build through all this extracurricular programming, and we can't do it without them.
Fort Worth ISD is on the cutting edge of this, really on leading of this. What's the future of esports, especially in high school level?
The future is for it to expand. There's still a few school districts that are starting off with it, and we want to make sure that more students are a part of this, because it's not just about Fort Worth ISD. If we can affect change by leading the way or working with districts like Burleson to clear any barriers that we may have to how this works in schools and learn from each other, then more and more school districts will be able to adopt it. I came from a very small school district growing up, and we didn't usually have opportunities like this. And we want to make sure that as we grow, that even the smaller school districts can take advantage of this, because there's a lot of students that could benefit from this.